a limited amount, you could say, a small amount of gas reserves, and turned it into a huge billion-dollar industry because we export so much gas to LNG.
Within a couple of decades, Trinidad and Tobago has become a major player in the global energy market. The Twin Island Republic is now the world's #1 exporter of ammonia and methanol, the biggest supplier of LNG to America, and the world's 5th largest LNG producer. It was Dr. Eric Williams who initially envisioned gas's potential for industrial development in his 1974 speech, "What to Do with Gas?" The current Prime Minister, a former Minister of Energy himself, has presided over the implementation of that vision. It was Frank Lukin who joined the Ministry of Energy in 1970 after studying geophysics and engineering, who with TREVOR BOOPSINGH wrote the paper which convinced the government of the enormous potential of gas.
That led to the government taking a major action in that point in time, whereby it then said to the company basically that if you cannot utilize this high pressure associated gas and that was being flared without utilization, that the government would claim it under the Petroleum Act. That ultimately led to the fact that NGC was given the authority to do that particular project, and to date we have produced about 0.7 BCF trillion cubic feet of gas from the associated gas that would have been flared without utilization. So we were able to secure a large tranche of gas. From this tranche of gas, the government then negotiated contracts with then Tringen 1, later Tringen 2, the ammonia plants, the methanol plants, the iron and steel plants.
As early as 1986, compressed natural gas as an alternative car fuel was being piloted, and the first CNG filling station opened in the same year. Following the first phase of gas-driven industrialization in the early 1980s, there was another major growth phase in the mid-1990s.
In the 1990s, and I think that's where probably Dr. Julian came in, we had stabilized our gas production and the gas utilization in the country, and I guess the country was looking to have a new growth in the gas-based industries.
In 1990, government-owned Trintamar began gas production in the Pelican offshore field as an alternative to the former Seoul gas producer Amoco. Chemical engineer Malcolm Jones, one of the energy sector pioneers, was instrumental in
the best piece of work I've done, if you want to call it that, is being involved in putting together the joint venture with Conoco Oil Company that it is now Phoenix Park Gas. To date, we can look back on it as having been successful. Phoenix Park Gas today has grown and has become one of the better companies here in Trinidad, and in fact it produced a lot of revenue in for NGC.
With the establishment of Phoenix Park gas processes in 1991, gas liquids extraction started up on a major scale. After a product-related pricing system was introduced in 1993, this proved to be one of the keys to gas monetization. The massive offshore Atlantic LNG train development, inaugurated in 1994, provided the platform for the 1996 transition from an oil to a gas economy. As energy taxation consultant John Andrews points out, Atlantic LNG created the demand for a gas market.
The advent of LNG in Trinidad and Tobago really changed the basis on which oil, at least gas revenues, gas production and gas revenues were utilized. Atlantic LNG took the amount of gas that was being produced and created a market for that by converting it from a gaseous form into a liquid form. The shareholders, it was Cabot LNG of the United States, Amoco, now BP, and British Gas to a lesser extent, approached the government with a view of setting up a liquefaction plant here in Trinidad and Tobago that would utilize the gas that was being produced by Amoco and BP and those companies. So in quick time we had 9 million tons coming out of Trinidad and Tobago. And then the demand increased again, and the shareholders decided to go for an even larger train, and therefore we were up to 14.5 million tons of LNG here in Trinidad and Tobago, which is quite a large amount.
By the dawn of the new millennium, gas had replaced oil as the leading contributor to government revenue. The National Energy Corporation, established in 2004, was mandated to develop gas-based investment. In 2005, the world's largest methanol plant came on stream, and in the following year, NGC began construction of the largest gas pipeline in the Western Hemisphere, the 56-inch wide, 76.5 kilometer long Cross Island Pipeline. In this period, there were increased local benefits generated within the sector.
I saw the OWTU as being called upon to contribute in more ways than just negotiations for improved terms and conditions of employment, and in that area I think I made an important contribution, so that today the oil worker might consider himself to be in receipt of benefits that come out of the most progressive pension and retirement arrangements that you can find anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
I remember when I first came to this job, we had done several studies that said platforms could not be fabricated here. And today we are on the cusp of seeing the fourth platform from our organization built locally. We've seen BG build one locally, we've seen BHP build one locally, we've seen EOG build one locally. And we have an enterprise at Labre now, which in total probably employs more than 600 people with a knock-on effect. So mutuality again in effort, in the sense that it's good business for us. We've created the products that we need to deliver in this business. But in doing that, we've also created supply chains that have allowed a whole community to come back alive, because business is not just about making profit and making money. It's also about being part of developing the nation and developing people.
Trinidad and Tobago now has the distinction of being a world leader in the gas industry. And other major producers like Qatar learn from our progress.
Because most of us in the industry, pretty certain is the first 100. There's a second 100 to come. So when you hear all this talk about reserves done, we've been saying reserves done since the 1930s, right? I can show you reports in the ministry that says reserves only had 10 years to go in 1935, right? So celebrating 100 years gives a strong sense of permanence, of achievement. If you look at the past, you will see there were ups and downs. There was booms and busts. And really and truly is how well we managed the down and how well we managed the up. And each time we pick up and did something different. We went offshore, then we went from the west coast to the east coast, and then we went from oil to gas, and maybe the next time
This is both the world's fastest growing primary energy source, and predictions for gas use are highest in developing countries. The Flare Vision 2020 grows brighter by the day.